Sausage.
Hello, everyone. This is Attack the Backlog, the podcast where I, Marcus Nez, tries to make a dent in their backlog one game at a time. This episode is all about The Last of Us Part 2. This is, in fact, part 2 of my discussion about Part 2 of The Last of Us, which is, I don't know, I was going to try and make a joke there, and I realized I had nothing. I was like, great start. But this is part 2 of my Last of Us Part 2 discussion, the final part. It is predominantly going to revolve around Abby, because that is the section of the game I played. Well, if you've played the game, you know of the way it's broken down. So we do return to Ellie for more than a smidge. I was going to say a smidge, but it was more than a smidge after your part with Abby concludes, after their confrontation. It may be to some, wink, wink, myself included, a bit more than the game needed post what I thought would have been a decent-ish end. There was a lot more to the game than I thought there was going to be. It was a case of me getting to that point during one of my streams and luckily having a friend who had already beaten the game tell me, you should probably play another night, because if you keep going right now, you're not anywhere near actually being done. And the last time I did that with the game was with Diablo 4, and that was kind of a nightmare scenario where I ended up playing through till 1, 2 in the morning or something ridiculous like that. But to the topic of The Last of Us Part 2, I think I'm going to make this episode top heavy with what little I have left to talk about regarding gameplay and all of that jazz. And then the bulk of this episode and the back 75% is just going to be revolving around the story, what I felt about how it handled Abby's arc, and if I think it did a good job of justifying her actions and making her into a sympathetic character, an interesting character, etc. I don't want to show my hand too early, but maybe just in my demeanor, you can tell how I feel. But in terms of gameplay, it became pretty clear. I don't know how much of Abby's section I talked about in the last episode, but it became clear that Abby was basically Joel from the first game. That's how she played. She didn't have access to a switchblade, a knife, so in order to silently and instantly take down enemies like clickers, or if you get grabbed by uh, an infected or whatnot, you have to have shivs that you've crafted, and those were incredibly useful. That was what I definitely focused on in terms of crafting when I had tape, because tape was a limited resource for a lot of my playthrough as Abby. That was the one thing I couldn't find. Scissors everywhere, everything else everywhere. I couldn't not find anything else to save my life. But with tape, it was just, where's the tape? I'm in a fucking store and there's no tape anywhere. There's scissors everywhere though. But she plays a lot like Joel, and that makes sense. She's bigger, she's more physical, she's stronger than Ellie, she's everything Ellie is not. And after a while, yeah, the only thing with her that I didn't love compared to Ellie was the crossbow, maybe. The bow was satisfying once you get it, and I kind of miss that. But they do generally play the same. They have their strengths and weaknesses. Again, Abby is more physical. She can just beat the hell out of an infected with her fists. That is impressive. Her little perk of, after killing an infected with her fists, she gets kind of super raged up and hyped up and is able to take down another one within a certain amount of time instantly. That's a pretty nice perk to have. She gets access to some heavier weapons a gun that can eventually get a burst mode, which I never used. I never felt like I would ever be in a situation where I would want to use that much. The game's not a shooter. At its core, it's not a shooter. There might be sections where you have to, even in those sections, it's to your benefit to try and navigate the space stealthily and take down enemies one at a time quietly, as opposed to just running and gunning. But then you also have, what was it that I was just thinking of with her? I can't remember. But oh yeah, she gets the flamethrower as well, which I thought was the most useless weapon in the game, and I think I only used it on the big, bulky one-hit kill boss fight you fight it in the basement of the hospital, I believe, with the giant humongous infected that has a smaller infected growing inside of them that will eventually get they'll separate and you'll take down the big bulky dude and then you chase the tiny one for a little bit. They basically guide you out of the hospital. You're like, hey, thank you. Now I'm gonna have to kill you. All right. But that boss fight was the only time I ever used the flamethrower. Because I just say, well, I have this now, might as well just use all of it on this dude. And that guy was a pain. One hit, one kills are going to be frustrating. It wasn't that bad because it only took me, I think, 3 tries to get him done. There were just a few instances prior to that where I was like, "Oh, where do you come from? How do you grab me? I thought I was safe trying to run past him and whatnot." But the gameplay is fine. Again, as opposed to some of my friends who are really hot on the combat and talked about how great The Last of Us Part 2 played, I don't think it is that significant of a jump from the first game. So if you've played the first game and are excited, if you've played the first game, you thought it was okay gameplay, and you're excited for part 2 because you think it's going to be this big jump from the first game from part 1, I don't think that's really the case. I guess traps weren't in there, so there are some strategies you can use as Ellie specifically when you're in her section, and that can be kind of fun to manipulate the enemies to your ways and lead them into traps and stuff like that. That's not exactly my play style, and I didn't feel a strong inclination to do that. But I also, as I think I alluded to in the last episode, did have growing inclinations towards that. And that is when the transition happened and I moved to Abby and it was all thrown out the window essentially. But in addition to the main campaign, I did try out the no return roguelike mode, which is just a very simplified roguelike mode where it's structured like a Slay the Spire any game where you have branching paths. In this, you don't really you have occasional branches, but not many branches, and it's only about 4 or 5 levels before you get to the boss fight, and that's one complete run. And what you're doing is going into little levels of specific scenarios, whether it be attacking, so you'll fight waves of enemies and you have to take down every enemy in a wave to get to the next wave, and so on and so forth, or having to survive for 3 or so minutes as more and more enemies keep spawning into the area. There are, as you play more, you'll unlock certain things like modifiers that can change the visual filter or make it so that whenever an enemy dies, they'll drop a bomb. When you kill an enemy with melee, you'll get health back, and so on and so forth. And in some cases, you might have an ally with you, and it's all leading up to a boss fight that can vary between. I'm sure once you unlock every boss, then it will give you a variable boss. But I think as you are playing through those first handful of runs, I did 5 runs maybe, You are just constantly unlocking new things for future runs. There are custom run options that you can create runs to your own liking. I'm not sure if those are shareable. It'd be cool if they were. But one of the nice things about that mode is that you can play as almost every character you'd want from the main game. So you start off with Abby and Ellie, and as you complete runs with them and complete levels with them, you'll unlock characters like Dina, Jesse, Joel, Tommy, Lev, and I always forget Lev's sister's name. But then also, was it Carlos and Mel? But no Owen. Owen is the one that I was surprised is not playable in the horror in the no return mode. You also get some ones from the first game, forget their names, but you get them as well. And it's a nice additional mode. I think in terms of DLC for a game like this, something that is so narrative driven, I struggle to go back to games and play DLC when they are of a narrative centric base. I prefer when they're more standalone or side stories like what they did with the first game with Left Behind. And to me, part of me thinks that the epilogue, which is what I would call it, that last 2-3 hours of the game, would have been better suited as DLC. Maybe, I don't know. It's just the game didn't need that. I'll get to that when I start talking about the narrative. But in terms of the gameplay and all, one, no return, solid little additional mode. I wish that, even though I don't know if I would really engage with it, but I think for people who do like the no return mode, like the way the game plays and all that jazz, it would be nice if it was broken down like, say, a Call of Duty game where you can download certain parts of a game. And if you could just download the no return mode, unless it requires all of the assets of the main game, it would be nice if you could just download that and save some hard drive space instead of having the entire game downloaded. I'll also say that I really like it's sort of Resident Evil-ish and how it's handled. The way when you complete the game, you earn these points and you can use them to unlock concept art, video filters, character models, and then also kind of cheats, including stuff like unlimited ammo, unlimited crafting, so on and so forth. And I do plan at some point to replay through the game and just have fun with unlimited ammo. I love it when games give you that ability. I love it in Resident Evil games when you get the unlimited ammo weapons and so on. It's just a fun kind of, not refresher. The word I'm looking for is I don't know. But it's kind of fun to just have that stress relieving moment to go through a game that brought you some frustration and just be able to completely destroy these characters and not have to think about things so methodically. But to the narrative, the real reason I'm here to talk. So I played a few hours of Abby's section last time. And now, of course, I've beaten the game. I played through all of her stuff, got back to Ellie and did that stuff. And I think overall, in terms of Last of Us Part 1 versus Last of Us Part 2, I lean towards Last of Us Part 1, even though I think the highs of Part 2 are, I don't know if I want to say so much better, but the highs of Part 2 are the best of the entire series. The problem with Part 2 is that it's uneven. Dina is a very, very, very low point. She is a nothing character who exists for no reason other than to be Ellie's love interest and to be pregnant. That's her only reason for existing. I really wish the game did a better job of expanding upon her character, giving her character, giving her person, giving her anything. Even when we get the flashback and you see their moment in the barn, she's just nothing. She's a nothing character. And it's so frustrating to have her be so all over it and to have her you have this moment with her after you've had your confrontation with Abby the first time at the theater to have this quiet time where you're with Dina and her kid JJ, Jesse's son at the barn, and you're supposed to, I guess, feel, "Oh, look at us. We're one big happy family," and I'm just still looking at Dina thinking, "Why? Why are you together? I don't get it. What about Dina attracts you? She's nothing." And I think that aspect of the game is enough for me to say, as good as this game is in so many other aspects, it's really poor here. And then I also think it kind of not just the Dina part, not just Dina's. I think the game maybe goes a little too hard in trying to really justify Abby's point and her actions and wanting to make sure that hopefully players would grow sympathetic towards her. And with that epilogue, I think it just makes Ellie into a worse character because it's beating you over the head with a point that it did a good job of beating you over the head with, or not beating you over. It did not need to beat that point into the ground. And that point is that everything that happened across this game, all of these actions, everything these characters are doing, they're for nothing. It's all pointless. Revenge is just this cyclical thing that goes nowhere and leaves you feeling empty. You want to get revenge and then you get it. And then what do you have after that? Nothing. And then the person you got revenge on, somebody there is going to want to get revenge on you. And it just becomes this thing. And you really get that explored so well with Abby's side of the story that you didn't need this 3-hour epilogue of Ellie finding where Abby was and then going after her to kill her. It it just didn't need that. And I think even for Ellie, it makes Ellie feel like a character who has no conviction because it seemed like Ellie was pretty set on it seemed like she realized after what happened at the theater that okay, look, Abby had the chance to kill Dina. Wish she did. I said wish. Oh, it sounded like it could be confused as witch or wish. I wish she killed Dina. And she killed Jesse, beat the crap out of Ellie, could have killed Ellie as well. And she did not. She's like, let's leave it at this. Let's move on. It is what, it's over. And it seemed like Ellie was okay with that. She still struggled with what happened to Joel, of course, in part because I think the way their relationship was at that time, it was rocky and Ellie hadn't yet forgiven Joel completely and they hadn't gotten reconnected the way they were prior to. I think like there's still just that emotion being built up between them. But the Abby stuff, it felt like she had moved on. And then Tommy has to come and be a little piece of shit, whining like a little baby. I can't do it because what? He got fucking one busted eye. Boo fucking who? Like, the way Tommy strolls into that moment and fucking talks down on her and just shits all over. It's like, "Oh, you yeah, you really cared about Joel." Like, what the fuck is your that made me hate Tommy. It's like, "Fucking fuck you, Tommy, that you send me on this thing. You guilt trip me in to doing this thing that I feel like she doesn't want." But as you're playing it and you get to that final confrontation, it feels like Ellie is way more into doing it. But it it, it all just kind of left a somewhat sour taste in my mouth and really solidified the thing that shocked me the most is that I think after everything that happened in part 2, I, as someone who wasn't sure if I was even going to like Abby and like playing as her, she might be my favorite character in the entire series because I think they handled her internal conflicts post killing Joel so well. I loved playing as her. After those first few hours, the first few hours were rough because I wasn't sure what they were going to do with her character. And I wasn't overly fond of having to start over, upgrading a brand new character and dealing with that bullshit of the gameplay where things you can't fucking fire a gun. And you're wavering all over the place. The mechanics of the game, notwithstanding, it was just a bit rough on me those first few hours. But as I started to see more of Abby's character, and especially when Lev and his sister joined the story, it just became this incredibly well made, subtle, internal story of Abby dealing with the aftermath of is not only dealing with the aftermath of her confrontation with Joel of finally after so many years of searching for the killer of her father, the person who destroyed their chance for a cure and so on. You also have her dealing with the fact that she's run into these two Seraphites and that they're real people. Plenty of Seraphites are I don't even want to say bad. It's just that you when you come across two people of a conflicting group and it's outside of wanting to kill each other, you can come to the realization that you're both people. And maybe there is some room for not friendship, but just you don't have to kill us. You don't have to kill each other. But her internal conflict dealing with the aftermath of Joel, this thing that had shaped her life for so many years, the thing that was her identity. Her identity was revenge. It was everything. And to get past that, what does she have after that? What is her life after that? What is her goal after that? What is her purpose after that? Because that is all she lived for. And was it worth it? Was all of that drive for that worth it? You look at her relationship with Owen as one of the primest examples of that. And also the moment where Mel is with her by herself and she fucking is like, you know what? If you're going, I'm not going because you fucking suck. You know you suck. You're a piece of shit. You're a horrible person, and I don't fucking want anything to do with you. I could not believe when Mel did that because Mel seems like this very timid fucking even even by herself, she feels like she'd be some timid thing that wouldn't say anything. Which I was like, damn, Mel. One, kind of props to you for saying all that, but also fuck you. Right? Are you so much better? Like, we all kinda suck. But the the way it handles that internal conflict for Abby over the course of the whole thing is so well done. It is probably the best character work of the entire series. And I was so surprised by how over the course of Abby's playthrough, I grew to like her more and more and understand her more and more. And it became clear too that as things went on, when you got to, because when you get that confrontation and you switch over to Abby, you feel like, oh, Abby has just been angry this whole time and she found you, Ellie. She's pissed that you killed all of her friends and she's here to get revenge again. But that's not really what's going on. I mean, she is pissed about Owen and all that jazz, but it's more so just wanting to move on from this, to put all this behind her and move on. Can we just stop with this? And you could say that it's the age difference because what is she, 2 years older than Ellie? But I I, I ended up really loving Abby, and I think enough can't be said about the addition of like adding Lev and his sister to the story was so well handled. And I love them as AI teammates. I think Lev is such a great counter to Dina in terms of introducing the character and giving them so much character, so much personality, so much history, so much. They just feel like a fully realized character. Whereas Dina, again, is just, hey, you like girls too. You also, I mean, you're bisexual, obviously. It, you like a girl, and yeah, you're also pregnant. Cool, fun, awesome, great. Dina, fucking, you suck, Dina. All right. Even in the no return mode, you suck to play as. You're just the most worthless who gives a shit character. I was so happy when I unlocked Jesse and was able to see him again in that mode. But I think the Abby stuff is handled so well. And it makes me wonder about the controversy regarding the game. And that I wonder twofold. One, I'm assuming that a lot of people just didn't like Abby inherently or right away because of what she did to Joel, and there was no getting back from that because you have fans of Joel and people who love Joel who are just never going to forgive Abby for what she did. But then I wonder if some people didn't like the fact that the game went the sympathetic route with her. I wonder if people are like, I don't want to feel sorry for this character who killed my one of my favorite characters of the series from the first game and so on. I don't want to feel. I don't want to understand where they're coming from because they killed Joel. It doesn't matter. Even though you could look at stuff like what Joel. I mean, Joel killed Abby's father. Does she not deserve the right for revenge? I mean, what Ellie's doing over the course of the thing, the first part of the game, and then the epilogue as well, is doing just what Abby did. She's going to kill the killer of her adoptive father. So, are they really that different? Not 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 really. The only difference is that Abby shows growth post the revenge, and Ellie doesn't seem to ever get to that growth until the final conflict where they're beating the shit out of each other after she rescues Abby and Abby rescues Lev from this third group of people who are making I don't even know what they're doing. I don't know if they're using the humans as slaves or they're doing some other shit. If they're eating, I don't know what they were doing with them. But if you went out of line, they would tie you up and push you by the ocean. I don't know what the fuck they were doing, honestly. But Ellie doesn't seem to learn anything until then. And it just seems like a waste of time. They did not need to beat you over the head with that point. The point that none of this matters. This has all been a waste of your time, and it's not going to leave you satisfied. You're not going to feel a sense of relief from it. It's just this constant stressor that the only way to relieve yourself from it is to move on. What's done is done, move on, because nothing good can come from this cyclical force of revenge, which is something that I was constantly berating as I was playing the game. I'm like, why are we doing this? Can we just move on? This is so stupid. Why is this character doing that? Why is this character doing that? And so on. But yeah, I really like the game from a narrative standpoint. I wish it played better. It's a criticism I have of all Naughty Dog games since Uncharted, where they just aren't the best shooters. The gameplay just isn't there. They are so good in terms of the cinematic feel of everything, great at set pieces. The narratives are overall pretty good. I would say that from a narrative standpoint, it's great. But some of the character work is obviously not the best. And I'm wondering how that's split because The Last of Us Part 2 is not a Neil Druckmann sole joint. There was at least one other writer. And it makes me a little concerned about Intergalactic that is going to be Neil Druckmann only as a writer. But Last of Us Part 2, I'm glad I played it. I will play it again at some point again, just doing the infinite ammo thing. I don't know if I'll ever play it again normally, but it is a strong conclusion to the story. I don't know what a Last of Us Part 3 would be. I don't want it. I can't imagine. The thing about it is that what else is there to tell in Ellie's story? So with that whole epilogue, you're with Dina and JJ on the farm, and then Tommy comes and he's a little piece of shit and guilt trips you into going after Abby, which is another 3 hours of the game or so. You do all that, you get into your fight, you fight each other, and it's clear that Abby wants none of this. You're like, I have to do this as Ellie, and you're playing as her. And you can see in Abby's face, she's just like, why can't we just move on? We've brought each other so much pain already. Joel killed my father. I killed Joel. You then went and killed so many of my friends. I then came back and I killed Jesse, beat the shit out of you, beat the crap out of Tommy, but I didn't kill any of you. And I said, like, that's enough. All right. Let us go our separate ways and be done with it. And you could see in her face, she's just like, why are we doing this? Can we just not? I've just been through this horrible ordeal. I just want to be with Lev and move on with I just want to live. Can I just live? And that was the only powerful aspect of that whole epilogue was the fact that it cemented my liking of Abby more than Ellie in that fight. Cause I'm just like, I don't want to be doing this. Abby clearly doesn't want to be doing this. Why are you making me stab her and punch her? I feel so sick doing this to Abby right now. And I think that is powerful just in the sense that you start me off not liking Abby at all. And I wouldn't say I was excited about the potential to kill her, even though I knew you would be playing as her, but I wasn't like, oh, I can't wait to get revenge on her. But I was like, you know what? Fucking fuck this person. Like, what? Like, couldn't they just move on? They've been wasting so many years of their life trying to find this one person to kill them. And that's the whole point of the story, obviously, as I've already talked about numerous times. But getting me to the point where I am playing as Ellie, this character you've known and loved for 2 games now, and I am fighting the character who killed Joel, my adoptive father, and in that moment, I am thinking to myself, "I don't wanna be playing as this character. I don't like what she's doing. This makes me sick. Please don't kill Abby." I'm like, "Fuck." That's impressive to get me to that point, and that's a sign of very good writing. But where you go after this, I don't know. Like, when Ellie returns to the farm, Dina's gone, Jay-Z's gone. That was probably one of the better or best parts of the epilogue is just the fact that it ends with Ellie being, "Oh, no more." I hope she doesn't go back to Jackson to be with Dina. That's my cancel. If there is a third game and it's like, "Oh, Dina's back," I'm like, "Well, fuck." It ended in a way where it's like maybe Ellie's like, "You know what? I need to just move on, separate from Jackson and all those people, all those lives, all those memories, and just find my own place in the world." I'm cool with that. The only kind of Last of Us Part 3 I would maybe want is I would maybe want more Abby and Lev or just Lev. I don't know. But I I really like the game. Again, the gameplay issues notwithstanding, it's a hell of a game. It's incredibly impressive from a technical standpoint. Performances are great. Very, very, very good game. And obviously, if you played and enjoyed the first game, I'd highly recommend it, but I would assume that's already a given. But it's very good. Again, I think just the fact that the pacing's a bit rough, the whole epilogue section is too long, too drawn out, didn't really need to be there. Beats you over the head with the point that you already got better and more subtly and all that in the main game. And it has its low points of characters like Dina. And also gameplay wise, I really hated the dogs. You remove the dogs, I think gameplay frustrations that I just have inherent with Naughty Dog things, I wouldn't have been as sour on. I really hate the dogs. The dogs just annoy the shit out of me. But outside of them, gameplay was fine. Yeah. That is The Last of Us Part 2. Yeah. So it was nice to finally play it and finish it. So that is going to do it for this here episode of Attack the Backlog. Once again, I am Markers, and as y'all can find me pretty much everywhere at PX Sausage. If you enjoy this here show or any of the stuff I do and what have you, you can support me and my nonsense over at patreon.com/PXS. There you can get access to a monthly Q&A, the occasional watch party, a private Discord channel, along with some fancy Discord roles, and the random drop on the Patreon here or there, depending on your tier. Or you could just support me to support me if that is your fancy. In addition to that is again patreon.com/PXS. In addition to the Patreon, you can find links to the site, the YouTube, the Discord, and so much more over at pxsausage.com. That is the letter P, the letter X, sausage.com. But that is it. That is all. As always, thank you for watching or listening. I hope you enjoy this here episode, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. But for now, adios, arrivederci, bye bye.